Everybody, this is Bert, and behind me you can see my finished Endor setup, and I'm going to show it all to you and how I made it all in this week's episode of No Skill Customs. This is my third part to the Rebuilding Endor series. First I repainted a Han Endor, then I repainted a Endor bunker, and now I've repainted my Ewok Village playset. And actually, in fact, it's really a Robin Hood Sherwood Forest playset combined with an Ewok Village playset. And I've had this all put together for years, but once I took it out, I decided I wasn't going to put it back in my Endor Diorama until I repainted it and made it look extra real. So I began by taking my Endor playset and chopping off 1.5 inches from this log right here, just so that we'd have multiple levels. And then where I attached the two playsets, I actually had to cut the round part a little bit wider so it fit around the logs, and I just kind of screwed them together. Here I used real wood to act as kind of like a step between the two playsets. And anytime you use real wood, you want to make sure you're baking it, because you never know what kind of critters or whatever are in there. So I actually just left a whole bunch of logs and little tiny twigs and stuff in my oven for like 3 hours and just let them bake for a while. Actually, this section right here we're looking at is my Sherwood Forest playset, and the fencing there is different, a little bit different than the Endor, where it had this like little place to mount like a catapult or something. And so I chopped that off. I repainted it because the wood was a little too dark. The Endor playset, or the Sherwood Forest playset's a little bit darker than the Endor one. And added some details and some dry brushing on there. Actually, I also added some flames throughout the display, and these are actually just little flame tips from the rocket things on the sides of the Galaxy's Edge Target exclusive droids. I thought they were going to look perfect as they were. They were kind of like clearish orange with a little bit of blue at the bottom, but it just actually looked kind of dark. So I wanted them to be really bright, so I painted them yellow first with little white and orange details just to match kind of how Hasbro's handled fire in some of the other situations. If you know your Robin Hood playset, you'll know that those huts there were dark green on that playset. So what I did was I started by matching the color of the Endor one, so that they were all kind of like a sandy beige, and then I did a brown wash, actually two brown washes, like a dark brown and a medium brown, and I dry brushed some really light colors on there, and a little bit of gray, and then I smeared a little bit of mossy green. Now they had this sort of leafy mossy thing sculpted onto the huts, and I didn't feel like that was enough, so I actually just added my own little mossy greenery stuff. Now here at the foreground, that should be another giant tree, but it was awesome when we were playing with it as kids, but it really kind of blocked the view of everything. So what I did was I chopped that off. I actually took the whole log off and ran it under my bandsaw, but I would not do that anymore. Now I have a Dremel tool with a diamond cutter thing, and I'd use that instead. Now to cover up the hole, what I did was I actually some kind of like a bamboo coaster. I think you're supposed to put drinks on or whatever. It's probably not really bamboo, but I painted that and cut it up a little bit so it fit with the rest of the scene. So because this was like kind of a busted up Robin Hood Village, I didn't have these two posts right here, or the real post to put Han Solo on the spit. So I grabbed two pieces of wood that I thought looked pretty cool and could hold them up. And they're actually a little more accurate because they're a little more irregular and thicker than what Kenner did back in the day. So it looks a little bit closer to what's actually in the movie. I put a little bit of moss just to hide the hot glue seams there. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I also moved it up a level. In the back, you can see I have a little drum here. I don't know if you've ever paid attention, but Poplu and Wicket are playing the drums, trying to get everyone pumped up to eat some humans and Wookiees, and I guess droids, right? Yeah, so that's just actually the seat thing from the Robin Hood Battle Wagon, another thing that I got a busted up version of, and I just painted it brown. Don't think that was an Ewok Battle Wagon one, okay? I put some other little trees and foliage. It's going to be in a background later. For now, it's just in front of the white screen so you can see it all better. but they'll hopefully blend in with the other things I have behind it. So the upper level, that's where they're going to roast the heroes and C-3PO floats and all that stuff. And then on the lower level, I have the celebration. And you'll notice I do have one figure already set up, even though I haven't set up anyone else. That's Yoda. I just glued him because he kept on falling over. But for every other character, what I've done is I've drilled holes in the playsets. And I'm going to put little metal pegs in each of their little footholes and just kind of drop them into the proper places on my playset. I do this for just about all my setups, and you can see it in more detail in my how to set up your action figures video. Now I painted just about every single inch of this Ewok Village playset, and except for, of course, the underside. Mostly because as a kid, I loved this playset, and I just always wished that they had painted it. Like there was some realistic painting on it, and because I knew the sculpting was good, and I really hope you guys agree that the way I painted it makes the sculpting stand out. So what I did was a dry brush of like a sandy kind of beige color over top, and then over that, because that doesn't look good on its own, I'll admit, it looks actually pretty bad. Over that, I went and put a nutmeg brown color, and that kind of gives it the reddish feeling, like the California redwoods that it's based on. For the nutmeg brown, I smeared on a little bit of green here and there just to kind of make it look mossy or whatever. And you can also see that I have other areas of moss that I glued on, because this little bracket here underneath, that had to be moved. So I wanted to cover up some of the holes from where that originally was supposed to go on the tree branch. So that's why that is. And you see some spots where the bark has been removed. For those little areas, I painted it beige first and did a little bit of wash of brown. I wanted to make it look distinctly different than the places where the bark were. Or bark was. And then I also painted, a few ferns and stuff like that, even though I plan on adding some foliage over top of it all. Now, I've handled the floor a little bit differently, because we're starting with that kind of gray color, if you remember it on the real Ewok Village. And what I did was I started with a wash of kind of like a reddish brown color over the whole thing. And then in some areas, I added a really, really dark brown and even black, just to make some little spots stand out more than others. Make it look as though some gaps between the hunks of wood that they used to build this thing were, wider apart than others. All this painting I've been talking about, all craft paint. I know there's, expensive paint out there, and airbrush paint, or you name it, and special Citadel paint. But you know what? For my purposes, I want something cheap and with a variety of colors, and that's why craft paint does it for me. 99 cents to $1.50 per bottle. You can't go wrong. And that way you don't have to spend as much time mixing and matching colors to what you've done previously. Dry brush a little bit of beige here and there, just to give a little more variety to the colors of the wood. As I've been panning across the setup, you may have noticed these Imperial helmets. I decided to take broken and busted figures and use their actual heads, and in some of them they're just actually helmets. But I know you're thinking, well, didn't they already make this? Didn't Hasbro already do this? That Endor accessory pack, it was cool at the time, but the helmets are all Power of the Force 2 style, and so I wanted it to look a little bit more believable and a little bit more like the movie. So I especially the Stormtrooper helmet specifically. So I just kind of used my own helmets. Although I did actually use, as you can see here, the Power of the Force 2 Death Squad Commander. But it looks better than the Power of the Force 2 one, because what I do is I just painted some gloss over it and let the gloss kind of like not cover perfectly. So there's some areas that aren't glossy and makes it look kind of like it's scraped. And yeah, I spent a lot of time actually looking at real photos of the drums that Brett Hupp plays. The helmet drums that he plays, just so I could get them accurate. Now, before I fill this thing up, I also used the fire pit from Robin Hood, painted over the fire itself black, and I did some dry brushing of light gray and really, really light gray to make the rocks look realistic and believable. And of course, I planned it out so they fit under the little spit that I made there. Now, I also have a little piece of fire, and I feel like this is actually a legit Star Wars piece. I painted it a little bit. I don't remember where this is from. Maybe this is from that Endor accessory pack, but I decided to put that in the middle rather than just having like a sticker like they did before. All right, so that's about everything I did. Let's load this thing up. As I'm loading it up, you can see in the background I got Wicket and Poplu. Actually, Poplu's kind of off screen there. There's Leektar next to Leia, R2-D2 on his little thing with Tebow. I've got another little mommy Ewok, Chewbacca, Luke. There's some Ewoks. I put a pile of logs. I don't know if you could see that. There's a pile of logs there that I put in, and a little bit of light in the back. Make it look like those huts are lit up from behind. Here's another mom Ewok with the Ewoks. And of course Han. Now we're over in the celebration. There's some A-Wing pilots. And of course Dracelian, or whatever they're called. I don't remember that guy's name. Not Oromarco, the other guy. There's George Lucas. I don't know if you spotted him right there. A couple other Endor soldiers. And Nine Num. Wedge Antilles, of course. I wish I had a better one. There's Nikki, the Ewok dancing. And then, of course, here's our heroes up in the foreground. Try to really capture that shot right from the end of Return of the Jedi before it goes to the credits. And you might have noticed a lot of these characters aren't what you've seen in stores. That's because I went and customized quite a few. But I'm going to save that for another video. Actually, the next video about Endor, I'll go over how I made some of these different customs you can see around there, and including painting an eraser up in the foreground. So look for that, and you know the way to find me. You got to like and subscribe so you know when all these videos come out, because I got to say, I try to be weekly, but these long videos have been taking me a little bit longer than I had hoped. So sometimes I only get to one a month here. But you could also be checking out my short videos where I go over customs. I'll be getting to my Endor ones pretty soon here.